Welcome to Are You in the Know, a podcast brought to you by the Racine Unified School District. I'm Emily DeBaker, Chief of Staff, and I'm here to help keep you in the know of all things RUSD. Consider this the inside scoop to what's happening in our schools. Today, we're tackling an issue that impacts every student, parent, teacher, and taxpayer in our district, the upcoming referendum. We're going to break it all down for you, what's in the referendum ask, how it will affect property owners' taxes, and most importantly, what it means for the students who walk through our hallways in our schools every day. Joining me today to help explain it all is the RUSD Superintendent Soren Gajewski and our Chief Financial Officer, Jeff Sarek. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Doing good.
All right, well, we're here to talk about referendum, and I know we could probably talk all day long about it, but let's start with just what the basics are. What exactly is our referendum ask, and when will voters be asked the question?
Our ask is over the next 5 years. We are asking for a total of $190 million. And this is specifically to balance the current budget over the next 5 years. The vote is on April 1st. And I guess we'll probably go into more of how we got to this point in a few moments and what that actual tax increase would look like, I'm sure as well. But that's the basic ask.
Yeah. And so you had mentioned it's $190 million over 5 years. That's over 5 years, not $190 million every year. So Jeff, can you talk a little bit to us about what the ask is per year? And it seems like that number fluctuates a bit. Talk to us a little bit about why that is too.
Yeah, sure. The $190 million over the 5 years breaks down to what our expected deficits are over the next 5 years. So in FY26, we're asking for $26 million, FY27, $30 million, FY28, $38 million, FY29, $46 million, and finally $50 million at FY30. And the reason why that fluctuates is over any given year, our expenditures and salaries, benefits, transportation, and everything else increases at a greater rate than our state revenue each year.
Every year there does seem to be other things, besides the cost increases, like you said, for staffing and transportation. There's also sometimes state and federal mandates that the state or federal government would say you have to do this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it comes with more money attached to it.
That's right. That happens quite often. And most recently, Act 20, which is essentially a law around our literacy programming. There are components to that originally were to be funded, but that funding has not come along with it. So we are doing the work of Act 20 without the resources to actually implement that work. Yeah. So there are lots of those kinds of things that affect the budgets every year. And again, over the next 5 years, we anticipate that will continue to happen.
So what are some of the things that this referendum is for? You mentioned a little bit about those unfunded state and federal mandates, but what are some of the other things that this referendum will do for RUSD if passed by voters?
So I think it's important to understand, to get to that answer, where this started. And that is, when you go back to about 2009, there's legislation that was signed into law that decoupled inflationary increases to public school revenue with inflation. So up until that time, we at least could count on whatever the rate of inflation was, we would receive that type of funding increase. After that point, it has been reliant upon their legislature to send bills to the governor that included inflationary or whatever revenue limits they would want to impose. As it turns out, that has been much below inflation all the way up to 2025. So as time has gone on, the gap has widened greater and greater and greater to the point where Racine Unified, as well as hundreds of other school districts in Wisconsin, are in these horrible budget shortfalls where the increases have been very small, our expenditures have been very high, and inflation has affected our costs, just like they do for everybody in every family. experiences that. So now we're in a situation where last year we made a $34 million budget shortfall go away by making significant cuts to our staffing and programs in the district. And so we felt going forward, we could not continue to do that level of cutting without significantly impacting the educational experience of our kids, which has been not only high quality, but has been improving over the last few years. And so there's just no way to continue to operate under inflation with these budget shortfalls and provide that continued momentum for the district.
So what exactly will this referendum support?
The resources that we would get from this referendum would support classrooms with class sizes that are indicative of good learning. They would keep staff like educational assistants that support literacy. They would keep staff that help us in terms of security and safety and getting our kids focused every day. This would affect the types of classes that we offer, but it also can spill into other areas as well. We could see this hit athletics and the additional opportunities that our kids have. One of the things I don't think people realize is Racine Unified offers a number of choice programs for our students. You can choose to follow the arts, International Baccalaureate, engineering, science, and so on and so forth. Those all have costs embedded in them as well. And to have these great choices here, these great educational options, we need to be able to provide the appropriate funding. So to keep our momentum and to keep the high quality teachers in our classroom and to keep these types of programs going in a safe environment, we need this referendum.
So I think one of the first things that many people might ask when they hear that RUSD is going for referendum is you all just passed one. We just had the 2020 referendum. Why can't you just use the money from that referendum for this one? Can you guys explain a little bit on why we legally cannot do that?
First of all, the referendum language back in 2020 was specifically for facilities. That is not something we can go back and change or draw from. And we chose to do that because we had extremely aging facilities in this district. Schools that were opening in the 1800s, schools that had significant repairs that were necessary. And so this was a wonderful investment by our community to upgrade our facilities for our students, whether it's a remodel or a new facility altogether. And we can see them. The construction is happening all around town, beautiful new facilities that really give our students an impression that school is important to our community. And much of those funds, by the way, are in process, either have been spent on facilities already under construction or are in the process. We plan on having most of this work completed here within the next couple of years. So that is a wonderful investment, but it is completely separate from operational costs that affect what goes on in those schools and in those classrooms.
We're really not alone. I mean, more than almost 200 districts in the state of Wisconsin went to referendum last year. About 149 or so of those passed, but it still, leads a disparity between districts that pass referendums and districts that don't. Jeff, can you talk a little bit about, if state funding had kept pace with inflation, how would that change things? Would we still be in this spot? Would all of these districts still need to kind of have that growing reliance on referendums?
In RUSD, likely not. Based on our enrollments and the amount of money we would have received over the last 15 years, we would probably have about $50 million more in our budget, and therefore would not be reliant on going to referendum at this time.
And I think sometimes when you talk about millions of dollars, some people, might be quick to assume that we aren't being fiscally responsible, but we know that that's not the case. Soren, you touched upon, that $34 million budget deficit from last year and having to make those tough decisions. Kind of explain and talk a little bit about how, and Jeff as well, how your team really works every day to balance the budget. And that comes with some really tough decisions, including asking the community to go to referendum again.
Yeah, good question. And, this referendum, as opposed to maybe some other referendums, like, for example, the facilities one, this is really about keeping the momentum going that we have going right now. This is about sustaining the budget that we have currently after we have made millions and millions of dollars in cuts. So if we were unique in going through this type of referendum, then we might raise some eyebrows. But as you mentioned, most of the state has either gone through referendum last year or is in process of going. And we're kind of all in this situation. It's a situation where our state legislature and our governor need to address this matter so that this doesn't continue to go on and on. When we chose the referendum and the dollar amount, we really kept it right where our budget is now. We are not asking the taxpayers to pay for new and additional programming, new facilities, something that's above and beyond. What we are asking our community to do is to support the things we have going right now. We want to keep that momentum because that means our students are learning more. They're better readers. They're going to have better opportunities in high school, and they become better citizens and community members. And that's what we want as investors, as people who live in this community, like myself. We did not aim for something high and overly ambitious. We kept this at a minimal ask so that we can continue the momentum that we have right now.
And not that we want to go down this road, but I do think it is an important reality to face and to explain to the community what happens in RUSD if this referendum doesn't pass.
In practical terms, there's going to be less staff in our schools and to support our schools. So that's likely then to turn into higher class sizes. It's likely to have less supports in the classroom, counselors, social workers, educational assistants, safety officers, principals, assistant principals, all of the individuals that help make a school day function and function safely, and to have that optimal learning environment. That's most of our expenditures are staff, and that's going to make a big difference. Mm-hmm. So more broadly, being able to keep up the momentum we have in our early literacy program, looking at our academies and all the offerings that come with that programming, including the supports we have to get students from high school and into their next adventure in life. And as well as we have a lot of tools we use to make sure kids are safe and they're focused on learning when they get into school. And these require manpower and they require maintenance on equipment. And so all of these things can be impacted and will be impacted, absolutely, should this not pass.
So obviously it will impact staff. It will impact families with kids in the district. But talk a little bit about the broader community impact. How does a RUSD referendum impact a community member that maybe doesn't have any direct ties to the district itself, but would still make an impact in their community?
Well, in a few years, I will not have a child in RUSD anymore. The empty nest is starting to be a reality and a little bit scary, but and I will be in that same zone. And the reality is that we chose to live together in this community, and there's so many great things about Racine and the Racine area. We all live together. It is important that everybody else around us are productive, good citizens that bring something of value to Racine. If that is starting a business or that is working for one of our many great companies, we all are in this together. So a good education for another person impacts me. If I go to the doctor later today because of something that went wrong, I am going to be very trusting that the people that are serving me and putting something in my arm or giving me a pill to take or something has a good education and knows what they're doing. And these individuals, many of them, they come from Racine Unified. They're part of our community. And so we all interact, and we want the best for everybody around us because it raises our quality of life. If we have a strong community, then good businesses say, there's a great workforce potential in Racine, and they want to locate here. And we are seeing some of that now out on with Microsoft and Foxconn and so forth. And so we want to be able to have a very robust, intelligent, and productive citizenry so that we can be prosperous going forward.
So we've talked a little bit about the ask. We've talked about what it's for and the reality if it doesn't pass, and also the impact on the greater community. But I think sometimes when people hear referendum on the ballot, they immediately think about their taxes, their property taxes, and how it will impact this. Can you guys talk a little bit about the impact on a person's taxes if this referendum were to pass?
Yeah, sure. Based on our current budget model, the property tax impact would be about 35 cents per $1,000 of property value over the next 5 years, and that would hold steady each year.
So if you had a $200,000 home, let's say, it would be about $70 a year.
Correct.
Great. Well, we do have a property tax calculator on our website, rusd.org/referendum, where you can go and you can type in the exact value of your house, and then it will calculate for you what your property tax impact would be about the referendum. So I just wanted to throw a little shameless plug in there for that. If anyone's interested in the exact numbers, we do have that resource on our website. So we started off by, sharing a little bit about referendum and how we're not in this situation alone, that, almost 200 districts went to referendum. More are on the ballot. It seems like every election cycle. If it passes, this referendum will obviously help us for the next 5 years. But what's the bigger picture? What needs to happen long term so that in another 5 years, we don't have to come back to the community and ask again? What's kind of that big picture, and what does it look like?
Yeah, and you bring up a point that I have been asked about in nearly every speaking opportunity that I've had on this. And, this is really this is in the political arena. Racine Unified, we do not determine, we haven't for decades, what the tax levy is. And so we are reliant upon our legislature and then our governor through the biennial budgets to determine what type of available resources we have for our students. If this trend continues, we are going to have districts that have passed referendums that will be the haves, and we'll have the districts that did not pass referendums, which will be the have-nots. And the experiences that people can have as the children, the community members, the staff in those various types of districts will be very different. And if our legislature and governor do not remedy this disparity in funding, this could go on further. I hope that the referendum that are going on all across this state is a wake-up call to take a good look at this and review the way we fund education. And that really, anybody who's listening to this, this is a territory where you work with your legislators, contact your legislators and talk to them about your concerns around this, because just by going with referendum to balance budgets is not a long-term solution, and it's not good for our overall Wisconsin economy as well.
Any final thoughts? Any common misconceptions or myths about referendums we want to clear up? We have the platform here, so any final thoughts as we close out our episode today?
I guess I want to reiterate that when we looked at our budget deficits going forward, and we looked at the cuts that we made last year, which were significant cuts, I did not want to propose a referendum that was asking any more from our taxpayers than we possibly needed. So when we propose this, it is simply to maintain the already reduced budget that we have now, accounting for inflation over the next 5 years, which is why those numbers are a little bit different. While we will continue to look for ways to be fiscally responsible, to be what I kind of characterize as lean and mean, that doesn't mean we don't have adjustments. It doesn't mean that we don't have a watchful eye all the time on potential expenditures that are not necessary. That will continue. This gives us a base to make sure that we can continue the work that we're doing now. I did not want to put anything further on our community than they already have invested in with our facilities, and then hopefully with these funds so that we can build on the good work that we have going. So I really want to emphasize that we're not going pie in the sky. We are very practical and pragmatic about what we're asking here.
Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time to chat today. If you are still looking for additional information on the referendum, just head to rusd.org/referendum, or you can always email referendum@rusd.org with your questions, and we will get that information right over to you. Listeners, I want to thank you for joining us, and watch for additional episodes of Are You in the Know coming soon. Hey, Are You in the Know listeners, enrollment for the 2025-26 school year opens in March. We have a special kindergarten enrollment week taking place March 3rd through March 7th. It's taking place at our Welcome Center located at 3109 Mount Pleasant Street in Racine. Anyone who signs their 3, 4, or 5-year-old up for school in person that week will get a free backpack filled with school supplies. The Welcome Center will be open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday that week from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and Tuesday and Thursday from 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you can't make it in person, just head to rusd.org/enroll.